The 13th annual Thrilling 32 Bracket Challenge is here. Coaster fans from around the world have submitted their rankings, and the results are in. The best 32 wood and 32 steel roller coasters, as voted by you, the fans, are ready to battle it out for the title of champion. Last year, it was the Voyage from Holiday World and Steel Vengeance from Cedar Point retaining their titles. Will these two juggernauts keep their crowns once again, or will a new ride take away the championship belt? It's time to reveal this year's contenders. The 2025 Thrilling 32 begins right now with the Thrilling 32 Selection Show on this very special episode of COASTER-net Uncut.
Throughout time, roller coasters have come and gone. Only some become legends for their intensity and thrills. Each and every year, coaster fans like you venture to the parks, searching for that one special ride that stands out above the rest. You submitted your rankings, and now it's time to reveal the group of elite roller coasters that you have voted as the best of the best. COASTER-net Uncut is proud to present the 2025 Thrilling 32.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Thrilling 32 Bracket Challenge. That's right, Andy Rabarchek, Danny Miller, we're back for this year's Thrilling 32, the 2024 Ride Warriors Choice Awards. Voting has concluded, the ballots have been submitted, the rankings are made, and we've got the brackets here for you tonight. Andy, our favorite time of year, pretty much the only thing we do nowadays because the news is just not that interesting.
Well, and I'll tell you what, another record-breaking year. We're going to set new records here tonight, being the latest Thrilling 32 selection show we've ever had in the season. So,
and still the longest continuously running awards program in the amusement industry. So those of you who are hoping we'd be gone, we're back for another year.
And you know what? Even if we were gone, we still conducted the poll. So that has not changed. So the Thrilling 32 is just the icing on the cake on top of the wonderful poll that you run every single year. I don't even know what year this is for the Thrilling 32. I guess I could count, but I don't really feel like it.
2012 was the first season that we did it. The 2012 was the first roller coaster theme park season we did it for. So that would make it, let's see, 2022 would have been 11, 12. So this will be the 13th year of the Thrilling 32. Can you believe that?
It's an ominous start here, I believe, to the Thrilling 32.
I suppose so.
So I'm assuming we still did. I've been pushing for this combined wood pole, Danny, and steel pole. Can put them both together. We still haven't done it yet. But as more and more wood coasters get all this Titan track, hearing all this news, all these coasters getting all this new type of track on it, pretty soon it's just naturally going to happen, and I'm going to be happier than ever, and I don't have to talk about wood coasters anymore. But anywho, that's where we usually start the show, right?
Well, yeah. Luckily, the greatest roller coaster ever constructed in the history of humankind, the Voyage, is still all wood. So until it is not,
Raptor's always been steel, Danny Miller.
Wow.
And I do feel like this is the year for Raptor. I feel like this is it. I feel that the people have finally spoken and finally chimed in. Or will the people prove to be complete morons? I don't know. We'll see.
Well, I think we can rely on the latter in any sense. In any event.
I live in America, Danny Miller. I see it every day.
And do we ever? Okay, so for those of you who have been with us for many, many years, you know the drill. This is not the Coaster Rumble. We've returned to the brackets the last couple of years, the traditional head-to-head brackets. For those of you who are new, here's how this works. So,
no, wait, hold on. Before we continue,
okay,
I want to make sure that this is not just American roller coasters, because there's a big movement to kick Europe out of America. You know, so there's certain people that don't want anything European.
We will not be deporting any roller coasters.
Okay, so all the roller coasters, we still have European coasters and Asian coasters and African coasters and maybe in a few South American coasters there. if we're lucky.
Everyone is eligible.
Okay, okay. I just want to
Yes.
make sure the eligibility for this year was clear before we started.
Yes. Consider it clear. All right. So, what we do, we run the Ride Warrior Choice Awards every single year. Uh, Thousands of voters from across the globe submit their ballots, and they vote in many categories. And then they submit a wood ranking and a steel ranking. They can rank up to 100 coasters in each, and they tell us how many coasters of each they've ridden. All of those get put into a big spreadsheet, a big algorithm, calculates the results, and basically comes up with a collective cumulative ranking for wood and steel lists. We take the top 32 from the wood list, we put them into a bracket. We take the top 32 from the steel list, we put them into a bracket. And now your job, as we reveal the brackets to you tonight, is to try and predict what the number one wood coaster and the number one steel coaster in the voting for the 2024 Ride Warrior Choice Awards was by way of picking which coaster you think ranked higher in that collective poll in each head-to-head matchup until you are ultimately left with one coaster left, which you think is the coaster that ranked number one. So in each individual matchup, you're trying to pick the coaster that you think ranked higher in those collective polls. You will get a point for each uh, correct correct pick, and then as the picks go along, you'll get more points for the picks in later rounds. Whoever's got the most points at the end of this wins. We've never had a back-to-back winner. I think Adam Beard is our defending champion from last year. We've never had somebody win more than once either. So it's sort of the kiss of death to win this thing because then you
You
never
win
win
it
it
once,
again.
and yeah, you never you're never heard from again. So thanks for playing. See you never. Now I just have one other question. When you are tabulating these polls and these these forms, did you were they submitted via Starlink?
I plead the fifth.
Oh, okay. So we don't know if there's been any tampering or not. We'll see.
No,
We'll
there
see.
has been no tampering. They just come to me and I just copy and paste the results into the master spreadsheet. It's very, very simple.
Very simple. Very almost. You can almost do it on a paper ballot, maybe.
Maybe, maybe,
Maybe.
maybe you
Maybe.
could.
Yeah.
I think
Maybe next year we'll have people actually mail the ballots into you just to
we
be
were
safe.
pretty darn close to that the first year,
Yeah.
I'll tell
Yeah.
you.
Right.
Um,
Here's a sheet of paper. Mail it in. That's the only way that these results can be verified and trusted. Otherwise, no one believes what's happening. So here we
that's
go.
right.
I'm trying to think of it. Do I have any other questions before we begin? Because we've only been, like I said, we've only been doing it for 13 years now. Hopefully, people know what this
Yep,
is.
at
You're
the
not picking the winners. This isn't a Twitter poll. You're not picking the winners here.
no,
Okay?
you're not voting for winners. You've already
No.
done that. You're
The
just
voting
trying
is
to
done.
predict the results now.
The voting has concluded. Uh,
Yep.
maybe. Did we ever post that it concluded? Who knows?
We did. We said that people had 2 weeks when we started
Okay.
voting, so that's
Okay.
fine. We haven't talked about whether or not we're going to do the live premiere deal again, but if we do, the link to fill out your bracket, we're going to do it through the Qualtrics link again because I think that worked pretty well last year. If we do the live premiere, that link will be in the description. I'll post it in the chat at the end of the show, and I'll set that to go live at the end of the show. If we don't do the premiere, we'll just drop it there, shortly after
It'll still be in the
video goes
description,
live.
probably. So there you go.
Yeah, we'll put it in the description, and I'll try and time it to have it go live about an hour after the show goes live.
And we
That way
always
you
have the
get to watch the
lovely
show.
we always have the lovely thrilling32.com that you can go and view past winners and past PDFs. And we'll put the new one up as soon as, or the one from last year from 2023 up during the shows at some point. So
Yeah, we like to put that up. We like to put that up after voting concludes, so that there's no trickery and people
yeah,
looking at the rankings and saying, I'm gonna downvote this ride because it did too well last year."
did too well last year.
It did too well
Okay.
last year, so I'm going to move it down my rankings to try and over adjust for everybody else who was wrong. None of that. We do not allow that in the Thrilling
That's not
32.
allowed here. We don't do that kind of stuff. Anyway,
Okay, so shall we get into the wood brackets, which is where we always start. We'll get through the wood brackets and then we'll get to the exciting stuff. with the steel
Well,
roaster.
yeah. The wood brackets have been somewhat static the last few years. So not a whole lot of
They
jockeying, as they say.
They have, but we will see a few interesting things out of the wood bracket tonight. I will say there is one at least one newcomer to the Wood Thrilling 32 this year, a ride that has never been in the Thrilling
Oh,
32.
there you
So
go.
we will see at least one newcomer to the wood bracket this year. So with that, shall we begin
Let us begin where all things starts
at the beginning?
at the beginning. It makes
Okay,
sense,
so
right?
let's start with the Cobb group, the Bill Cobb group here in the wood coaster bracket. We've got Tonnerre Touzeus from Parc Asterix in France going up against Gold Striker from California's Great America in Santa Clara, California. Who knows how long that park's going to be around these days. We've got the Legend from Holiday World in Santa Claus, Indiana, going up against Shivering Timbers from Michigan's Adventure in Michigan. We've got El Toro from Six Flags Great Adventure in New Jersey, going up against Prowler from Worlds of Fun. One of those rides getting that Titan track, I believe, earlier. And we've got a couple of Andy's favorites in this group here. We've got Ghost Rider from Knott's Berry Farm in Buena Park, California, going up against Boulder Dash from Lake Compounce in Bristol, Connecticut. So, I don't know. There's a couple of rides that do pretty well historically in here. I don't think you're winners here, but there's a couple of challenging matchups and challenging potential matchups moving forward in this group. This has potential to be a very challenging group.
Well, and it's impressive because you named 8 roller coasters and not one of them has been closed this year. So,
Well,
so that's impressive with the streak we're on with the number of coasters closing. Just
I
recently
know.
announced, like we're losing a lot here. Not a single one that I've cried about yet. So,
Well, that's not to get off topic here, but I mean,
what else would we be doing here if we didn't do that?
well, yeah, I mean, not to get off topic here, but I mean, people are crying about all these rides closing, and to me, there's only really one that I'm kind of upset about, and it wasn't really a big surprise to me, and we're gonna see it in a few minutes here, and I'll mention it when we get there. People probably
Yeah.
already know what it is, but
Well, I'm
but
gonna say it's not King Ka. Is
it's
gonna be
not
my.
King to God.
It's
I
not
mean,
King Ka because I saw a lot of tears over that one, and I've still yet to even think about it twice. So
no,
anyway,
that's fine. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. Prowler has historically always been criminally underranked. We agree on that front here. Gold Striker has been really good the last couple of years. Boulder Dash has always been kind of top 10, but maybe not quite as good recently. Ghost Rider has continued to climb. I'm pulling over here. I'm pulling over my notes here that I've had from over the years here. Prowler has, risen in the rankings every year since 2019 up until last year. Its low was in 2019 at 29. And then last year Prowler was sitting at 23. So like that's kind of where Prowlers live, which to me is far too low,
hard
I
to.
think. But Ghost Rider has continued to rise. It was up to number 12 in last year's rankings. Ghost Rider was. I'm looking at my looking for my notes here on Ghost Rider. Where the heck is it? Yeah, so it was a number 8 in 2021 and 2022. It ranked in the top 10 in 2020, 21, and 22, and then was number 12 last year. So it dipped a little bit last year, but still in a pretty good position here. And then, El Toro has been as low as number 5 in recent years. It was number 5 again last year, which matched its all-time low. It's been number 5 for 2 consecutive years now. So, how are you feeling about maybe El Toro dropping and maybe Ghost Rider coming back up? Or, I mean, I think, and then Gold Striker's always been top 10 last several years. Gold Striker was number 6 last year. So I think those are probably the 3 or 4 coasters you're seriously considering here, right?
Well, and Boulder Dash is always in that mix somewhere too.
Yep.
and Shivering Timbers and this one, I think there's two clear matchups, and there's two matchups that are very unclear, at least in the first round. And as we've always said, that the first round matchups can determine a winner. Yes, you need to pick the right one going to the finals, going to the end. But especially when you get to these wood coasters, you really need to pick those early matchups to gain some of those points because everyone's going to assume that Voyage is winning. This should be no secret. So we'll see if that happens again. But I
That
think
should
that's
be the assumption you're working with,
it
right?
should be the
It really
assumption
should
you
be.
start with. I
And
don't know for sure what's happening. I haven't looked at what's going on, but
Voyage has won every year since 2017. So 17, 18,
so the odds
19,
would be in your
20,
favor.
21, 22, 23. So Voyage has won the last 7 years, which obviously it's extended the record for a while now for most consecutive wins. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that should be the assumption you're working under. And if you're wrong, you can pretty much bank on everybody being wrong because it feels like
Right.
everybody's going to do that.
Right. So these early matchups here, like I like some of them. The Legends always discussed. Shivering Timbers was
Yeah,
always
the
coming up.
Legend had a nice little showing last year,
Didn't
if I
Legend get a little
remember.
bump last year versus
Yeah,
Legend? A little
yeah.
bump.
So Legend was number 20 last year. The year before that, it was 18, which is the highest it had been since
Yeah.
2016. So
So the Legend
it's
is like in a little bit of a renaissance here almost.
it kind of is. It kind of is. I mean, it's
Not,
always
not we're not talking about winning the tournament, but we're talking about
no.
solidifying a spot like in that mid-tier group.
It's been as low as 29 in
Yeah.
years, and it's come
Yeah.
back up to be in the low teens, high 20s. So it's certainly doing much better than it's done in the past. So Legend is if you're looking for something off the board, maybe to win a couple of matchups, Legend might be that ride if you want to try and if you want to take a risk at an upset, Legend might be a good candidate, I think.
And then I think at the end of this round that you have a tough choice at the top too. That the two ones coming out of each side should be fairly clear, I think. But then who takes that, I think, is going to be a little bit of an issue. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna go chalk off of last year's rankings, El Toro and Gold Striker were right next to each other last year at 5 and 6, and they were separated by only 0.24 percentage points. So
Good
certainly
point.
within the range where they could flip flop. Certainly. So,
Flip the coin
um,
there.
yeah, flip your coin and hope you pick
I
right
will
there.
say I do think I ranked El Toro down, so that probably means they'll go up in this ranking the way that this ranking works.
Well, yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's usually
It feels like nobody's ridden El Toro in the last 15 years because
well, it's
they're,
been broken for how many of those, so it's
well, I know. Tell me about
it's hard to ride a ride when it tears up the entire track, right?
it. Yeah, and so we'll see how this retrack goes. They're retracking a lot of it, so we'll see how that goes, and we'll see how it rides next year. Any other thoughts here on the Cobb group, or shall we move on?
Still don't know who Cobb is, but we'll just move on.
I think he's responsible for Judge Roy Scream among other rides.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, so
I'm gonna figure out when I figure out who any of these people are you've chosen for the rounds for the groups for this year. Then I'll tell you when I know one. Okay.
okay, well that sounds like a plan. Well then let's see how we fare with group number 2 here, and it's the Herbert Schmeck group.
It's not this one.
Okay, well there we go. All right, so we've got the Raven from Holiday World in Santa Claus, Indiana, going up against Q Cullen from Emerald Park in Ireland. So Q Cullen back in the Thrilling 32 again. We've got the Voyage from Holiday World in Santa Claus, Indiana, the 7-time reigning consecutive champion, 8 times overall, going up against Thunderhead from Dollywood in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. Over on the other side, we've got a battle of 2 European rides. We've got the Rutschebanen from Tivoli Gardens in Copenhagen, Denmark, going up against Wodan Timber Coaster from Europa Park in Roost, Germany. And then we've got the Battle of Pennsylvania. We've got the Poor Man's Voyage. We've got Ravine Flyer 2 from Waldemere Park in Erie, Pennsylvania, going up against the Phoenix from Knoebels Amusement Resort in Elysburg, Pennsylvania. So, there's an interesting dichotomy of coasters in this group here because we've got a couple of rides that are always at the very top. We've got a couple of rides that are always seem smack in the middle of the 32. Then we've got a couple of rides that kind of feel like they're just happy to be here,
They're
right?
just happy to be here. Welcome, Thunderhead. You're just happy to be here. Um, for the culling that's going to happen.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's like you exactly what you said there that these matchups you got to choose. I think the winner coming out of this is clear. It should not if it's not that, then we got a big issue with the voting
Yeah.
pool this year. Um, but yeah, but you have to look at some of these matchups like Cullen's usually down towards the bottom,
Yeah,
Raven.
that was the bubble coaster at number 32, I think twice. Uh,
Yeah.
let's see, in 2020 and 2021, it was number 32. It had been higher. It had been 27 in 2019. Last year, it was number 30. So again, that's one that's kind of just narrowly sneaking its way in.
Yeah. And then once again you have the holiday world renaissance going on and you
Yep.
know people really loving everything that they're doing over there with Hollywood Nights and whatever. Then on the flip side, you got those middle of the pack coasters too. So this one's not going to be easy either.
Yeah, you mentioned Raven. I mean, Raven has moved up every year since it missed the thrilling 32 in 2019. It was 27 in 2022 and 2023. So, like you said, it has sort of come back a little bit. Still not overly high, but it certainly is there. Wodan Timber Coaster and Roche Bannon, I think, is a pretty interesting matchup because those again were two rides that were right next to each other in last year's ranking. Can you tell that I like doing that to people? Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's being done on purpose at this point.
Yeah, I mean, Wodan Timber Coaster has been in the top 10. That was many, many years ago when it first opened. It's been in the top 16 every year since 2019. It was number 14 last year. Rich Bannon was number 15 last year, right behind it, which was the
Really,
highest
because
it's ever
Rich
been.
Bannon 2 years ago was 23, so that's an interesting jump there.
Yeah, and,
But
and
was
in
that in
2020
another?
it And in 2020, it was number 19. So then last year it was number 15. So Richie Bannon has,
Ping ponged.
it's the ride that people kind of like to make fun of as to why is this here? But this ride's been here a while now.
Yeah, and solidly in the middle in the 15 to 20 range.
Right,
So, well, 15 to 25 range. So
right.
it's right there in the middle of the pack. So you got to figure out where is it ping ponging again? Is it settled in finally? Who knows?
Yeah, and Phoenix was number 9 last year, which actually ties its low. It's been as high as number 5. It's been number 5 twice, and it's been 9 on 3 different occasions, 2019, 2022, and then again last year in 2023.
And I
Um,
don't disagree with that.
so
I
yeah, I mean Phoenix is I mean I'm a Phoenix loyalist. I'm a Phoenix diehard, but I think anything in the top 10 is appropriate.
yeah. I think people who put it as number one is a little crazy, but you know, I don't want to criticize other polls out there.
Well, yeah, I mean,
But that's what
we
I
don't
do
need.
normally.
Really, we don't need to spend time criticizing polls that don't run their poll every single year. So, um,
Exactly.
yes, again, if you're working under the assumption that everybody else is, the winner of this group is clear, but how you get there and what the other matchups do are going to be interesting here. There's like I said, there's a nice cluster of rides that kind of always seem to be right in the middle of the pack here, and I think that's going to make this group a little bit of a challenge.
Yeah, where the winner coming out should be clear, but getting to that point is going to be the challenge. Yes, indeed.
This is a particular group that might have been even more interesting under the Rumble format, where you had to rank the top four
Yes.
after selecting the top four, because the top one's clear, and maybe the second one's clear too, but trying to rank some of these would be
Yeah.
extremely difficult. So it might actually be a little bit easier in this traditional format.
So you're welcome.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I went easy on you guys by only putting one pair of rides in this group that were next to each other last year. All right, shall we move on to the next group here?
Absolutely.
All right, so we're gonna go to the Vernon Keenan group. The next one here, we've got Vernon Keenan himself appearing with the Coney Island Cyclone from
There you
Luna Park
go.
in New York City. Once a second year in a row, the Coney Island Cyclone is here, Andy. I know that makes you very happy.
Yeah.
And it gets to go up against our defending runner-up, Wildfire from Kolmarden in Sweden. We've got the Battle of Texas. We've got the Boardwalk Bullet from Kemah Boardwalk in Kemah, Texas, outside of Houston, going up against Texas Stingray from SeaWorld San Antonio in San Antonio, Texas. That should be a pretty good matchup there. Those are two rides that I don't think are going to go particularly far, but they're pretty close to each other in the rankings the last several years. So that should be a good one. We've got Mystic Timbers from Kings Island in Kings Mills, Ohio, going up against Renegade from Valley Fair in Shakopee, Minnesota. A battle of Cedar Fair, Six Flags GCI coasters there. And we've got another non-US coaster battle. We've got the Coaster from P&E Playland.
Well, we don't know about that, Danny Miller.
Well,
Coaster at P&E could be very well American very soon.
I stand corrected. I stand corrected. The Coaster from P&E Playland in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, as of the time of this recording.
Currently, you never know. It could change tomorrow. That's how long it takes me to edit this show.
That's right. Going up against Balder from Liseberg in Gothenburg, Sweden. Ride that did very, very well last year as well. So, this one feels very different from the previous group, because I think not all four, three of these four matchups, I think, are virtual toss-ups. Do you think that's fair?
Yes, I think that's fair to say. There's one clear winner on this, and that might be the winner coming out. I'm trying to look at how this bracket lays out in my head right now, what I would do if I was picking them. But yeah, when you start getting into the Texas coasters, Mystic Timbers and Renegade, those are always I'm looking at 2 years ago in the 2022, and even stuff right next to each other. So Mystic Timbers was 10, Renegade was 11 in 2022.
Yeah. Last year, Renegade was 11 and Mystic Timbers was 13. So the last 2 years are going to tell you two different things.
Yes. And then Coaster and Balder. And Balder did the big jump last year, right? Because Balder's all the way down at 21 in 2022, but last year was the big jump for Balder. What did it end up?
Last year, Balder was 7.
7. And now you got to figure out there, is that where it's settling, or is that where it jumped? Is that the final ranking? Because sometimes we see them jump up and then settle back down. It's weird how this poll does it, because it's weird how these things happen, because you think, well, the same people are voting. Maybe you get a few new voters here and there. Maybe a few people drop out here and there. But they always tend to do that. They jump up and then they kind of settle in, like same people.
Because if somebody rides a lot of new rides and they continue to keep a ride high in their ranking, even if they haven't moved it or didn't re-ride it, the fact that they've ridden more rides, it's going to affect the percentages they get, right? So,
absolutely.
Riding new rides changes this poll. And I think that's one of the things that makes this so challenging, is even if you have the exact same voters every year, which, I mean, let's pull back the curtain. Our voting pool does not really change year over year. It's really kind of the same people voting every year. And we still get a lot of variation in our results. Now, not a whole lot. I mean, rides don't typically move big jumps unless a lot of people went and rode a ride one year or a ride's brand new. but generally speaking, there's enough little movement that makes this challenging every year, even on a wood side where most of the same rides are in the group.
Absolutely.
Um,
Um,
and Coaster was number 10 last year to Baldur's 7, but Coaster's been in the top 10 every year since 2018, whereas Balder just got there. So it's like, do you believe the consistency of a ride like Coaster, or are you gonna run with the volatility, but the recent result that says Balder should be a little bit higher?
that's a tough one. And I like I've heard nothing but good things about Balder, so I don't doubt for a
Balder's
second that.
tremendous. It's a million times better than El Toro, let's be honest here.
And that's I've heard that almost categorically across the board, but anyone who's been on both has basically I've heard that same sentiment over and over and over. So it's not
It's a more
that,
interesting layout too, and quite frankly, there's so much more airtime just because there's so many more instances of it.
yeah.
Uh,
And it's so I do think that Baldur's probably going to stay up there. The question is how high is it going to stay? And Coaster was ranked 7 2 years ago.
yep.
So Baldur kind of like took over for Coaster. So that's a very interesting matchup you chose there, Danny Miller.
I I I liked picking these matchups this year. I don't know if this year's wood bracket is the hardest wood bracket we've ever had. But I think I enjoyed matching up some of these coasters together the most of previous years because I think there's a lot of interesting things here. We've got a battle of Pennsylvania, right from the last group. We've got a European battle. In this we've got some GCIs. We've got a Texas battle here, and we still got one more group to go, which will have some interesting matchups. So I really enjoyed putting these matchups together on the wood side here, especially.
Yeah. So let's get to the last one.
All right, so we're gonna go to the Larry Bill group to wrap things up here on the wood side of the bracket. We've got Goliath from Six Flags Great America in Gurnee, Illinois, going up against a newcomer to the Thrilling 32 and a ride that I got to ride for the first time this year. It's been on my bucket list for a very, very long time. Tremendous ride, and unfortunately, it is going to go the way of the dodo bird after this year. Megaphobia from Oakwood Theme Park in Wales. Welcome to the Thrilling 32. You've made it. You have arrived. Megaphobia is in the Thrilling 32, finally.
It's interesting that it made it in its first year ever. Like even when we were doing this poll way before, I don't think it made it in ever, right? It's never been in the Thrilling.
No, it's always had so few voters.
Yeah.
I went back. I didn't go back all the way, right? Because the old polls are on older computers. But I don't think Megaphobia has ever had more than like 2 or 3 riders in a given year. It's just not. This might be part of the reason why the park is closing. It's just not a ride people ever go to ride. It's like you don't realize how far away from everything Oakwood is. Like, it's not like you cross the border into Wales and there you are. You have to go like all the way out to near the west coast of Wales to get there. Like, it's hours away from civilization. It feels like
it's out there. So that's
probably why it's out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
But that happens. But Megaphobia is here in the Thrilling 32, and we've had defunct rides before, so maybe it'll continue to stay as years go by here. We'll see. Moving on to the other coasters in this group, we've got Troy from Toverland in the Netherlands going up against Rampage from Alabama Adventure in Bessemer, Alabama, a ride that did not operate this year. Actually, a ride that in layout is very, very similar to Megaphobia. So they have some very small differences at the end, but a lot of similarities too. We've got Outlaw Run from Silver Dollar City in Branson, Missouri, going up against Joris and the Draak from Efteling in the Netherlands. Another Netherlands ride in this group. And finally, our last matchup for the wood bracket is Colossus from Heide Park in Germany, going up against Lightning Rod from Dollywood in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. The wood version, we'll see if it appears on the steel side as well. But enough people still ranking it as a wood coaster for it to continue to be here. So here it is.
Yeah, and that's so the winner out of this group. I don't know if it's altogether clear on who's coming out of this group.
It's a
We
very
got Lightning
eclectic
Rod.
group, isn't it?
It is. So Lightning Rod and Outlaw Run, plus you throw Megaphobia in there, and we've always seen European coasters jump early on in this poll. Um, that in 2022, Lightning Rod was 2, Outlaw Run was 3. What was it last year?
Let's see here. Outlaw Run was 3, Lightning Rod was 4,
Oh,
because Wildfire was number 2.
oh, Wildfire was number 2.
Wildfire bumped
Wildfire
everything down a
jumped
spot.
last year. That's right.
Yes.
Wildfire jumped last year.
And
So picking the winner out of this group is once again not going to be an automatic choice, I think.
no, it's definitely not. Goliath was number 22. So where do you feel like Megaphobia is going to come in?
That's a crapshoot.
Yeah, Goliath's kind of been around there for a while now. I think Goliath's ranking is pretty solid. It's not going to
Yeah.
move more than a couple spots in either direction. So, you've really just got to identify where you think Megaphobia is going to fit into all of this, right? And again, another example of me trying to be nice to the voters, trying to make them not have to scroll very far to find two rides that are matched up against each other. Troy was 16 last year to Rampage is 18. So not right next to
There
each
you
other,
go.
but again, another group of rides very close to each other.
Yeah,
Could you
yeah,
tell I liked doing that this year?
yeah. It's gonna suck for people that have to choose those.
Mhm.
Luckily, and I haven't been talking about a lot of future matchups here down the road because I think there's gonna be some interesting matchups that come out of some of these brackets. That yes, these early matchups are very close together, but I think there's gonna be some real interesting stuff when we get to the second round as well to determine who comes out of some of this.
It's it's
But
it's it's kind of interesting that the two RMCs are lined up to play each other in the second round, and perhaps Megaphobia and Rampage being very, very distant but very similar cousins are
mm,
potentially lined
mm,
up to face each
mm,
other in the second round as well.
mm, mm. Creating storylines, Danny Miller, storylines coming out of
Yeah.
this. As you're choosing, apparently, as you're choosing your coaster brackets, figure out what tells the best story. So it's who
Well, as a wise, well, maybe not wise man once told me, it tells a story, Danny. It
it tells
tells
a
a
story.
story.
That's why I got stuff all over my room.
I
The
think that was
wonderful
said on this channel a few times.
tells a story, Danny,
It
and it's
tells a
got street
story,
cred
Danny.
too on top of that. So
Yeah. So there you have it. There's this year's thrilling 32 wood coasters. A couple of rides that have been in recent years, like we've seen Mind Blower in recent years, The Beast,
thank
Tremors.
God.
Those rides no longer in the thrilling 32, at least this year. Those rides are not in. Not all of those were in last year, but those are rides that have been in recent years, and not seeing those here. So, at least one had to make way for Megaphobia. So, those are some
Oh
of the
well,
rides that didn't make it in.
and not a single person's. Well, there might be some people that miss them, but most people won't even miss them. So, is it
No,
time to move on to the steel? Quite possibly.
I think it is. I think we've got an interesting wood group. I think we've got a challenging wood group, and now I think it is time to move on to the steel. All right, so let's move on to the steel coasters now. We're going to start with the John Wardley group. I think we've named a group after him before. How are we doing on the names here?
Still don't know a single one.
Oh for 5. All right. So in the Wardley group, we're going to have a couple of new coasters appear in the steel coasters this year. So get ready, Anthony. We've got Helix from Liseberg in Gothenburg, Sweden, going up against Terran from Phantasialand in Brühl, Germany. We've got a coaster new to the thrilling 32 this year. We've got Tutatis from Parc Astrix in France going up against Maverick from Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio. So we've got a mock terrain style blitz coaster and 3 Intamin style blitz coasters on that side here. On the other side of the bracket, we've got Jurassic Park The Flying Dinosaur from
There you go.
Universal Studios Japan, going up against Nemesis from Alton Towers with the new Nemesis Reborn logo there on the screen. Back to the original font. I know Alex Baker is going to like that we got the original font back there. And we've got Steel Vengeance from Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio, going up against. I know it hasn't actually operated under this name yet, but the logo's so much nicer than what they used this year. So we're just going to call Intimidator 305 Project 305. We're going to be the first to officially refer to it in this poll as Pantherian. How about that?
There we go.
From King's Dominion. I know nobody's ridden it under that ride yet, but it's March. The park opens later this month. We're going to call it Pantherian here.
Although I did write it with partially black paint on it, so does that count?
There you go.
I was one of the few people that actually ride Project X. Did you get down there at Kings Dominion?
No, not this year.
I also purchased a Project X t-shirt.
Or 305 with an X in it.
Yeah, I have a Project X t-shirt that I overpaid for greatly. Because Kings Dominion has the highest t-shirt prices, maybe in the industry. And I don't know why.
Yeah, they are quite high there.
Like just very high for I have no idea why they're so high.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure why either.
Because they're higher than all the other Cedar Fair parks. Like Cedar Point, like I've been to quite a few.
I was quite fine. I was quite happy with the prices at Cedar Point this past
Yeah, and I was
year.
at Dorney this year as well, and I didn't feel like the prices were like super high. Like, yeah, when you get into the higher quality shirts and stuff, you get higher prices, but like everything at Kings Dominion's high.
Even
Like
the
I don't
crappy black ones with like stats and everything.
Yeah, like seriously. Well, that's the Project X shirt. Like I got the I Survived Project X.
Oh yes, of course, the I Survived shirt.
I survived it,
Tremendous.
baby, or something like that.
So
let's look at the actual coasters here. A lot of coasters
we've
never
got
heard of
four
before.
rides on the left-hand side that are extremely similar, at least in the way of what types of rides they are, right? I mean, Helix is a terrain style, but really, it is kind of a blitz coaster, at least in that family. Terran Tutatis is kind of like it. The way that I would describe Tutatis based on what people say about it is it's what people wish Pantheon was, because it looks like it takes Pantheon's concept and puts more to it, some more elements, a little bit more airtime, a little bit more of a terrain aspect, a little bit more theming. So we'll have to see where that one. And Tutatis was 44 last year with a minimum ridership in its opening year. So this is really kind of feels like it's the first year that we're really gonna get a sense of where Tutatis ought to be here.
And Terran's been slipping too, right?
Terran's been slipping. It was down to 25.
Yeah.
Last year. Now, Terran has kind of like we saw this with Blue Fire Mega Coaster several years ago, right? Where it didn't have a big drop all at once. It just slowly down a little
fades
bit.
out.
Yeah, and it was 25 in 2022 as well.
So it's kind of like settled there towards the middle of the pack.
Right. Now, Helix on the other hand,
yes.
Helix has had a little bit of a tumultuous history with the Thrilling 32 because it was top 5 in 2018 and 2019, and then in 2020 it dropped all the way out to 37, which ended up kind of being an outlier, right? But then it was back in and it's returned to the top 20, and then last year Helix was number 12, and I think we agreed last year that 12 felt like it was probably about the right spot for Helix. It felt like 5 was too high, felt like 37 was too low, and I think once we went through the whole list and we found that last year Helix was 12, it felt like that's about where it was going to be and where it ought to be.
And the only thing I know about Tutatis is that it was the if you want to be the most annoying person at Hollywood Nights, you wore Tutatis.
You wore yeah. There's always the European ride that everybody wears the T-shirt of, right? Tutatis was the ride that everyone wore the shirt at Hollywood Nights last year.
It was a clear identifier of where you were.
I can't wait to get that same T-shirt and then not wear it to
and
park.
then and not wear it to like an event such as that.
Yeah, just wear it around the house or whatever. I don't know.
You know,
But Tutatis, so you're going up against Maverick, which, Maverick has a very, rooted history in the Thrilling 32, right? It's
yeah,
been as high as number four, way back in 2016. It's been in the top 10 every year since 2016, except for last year where it dropped down to number 14. But 14 is still a very, very solid showing, two spots below Helix. So, should they both get through the first round, you've got to make the Helix Maverick decision, which is going to be an extremely difficult one.
yeah, like that's not a fun side there. There's that's not a fun side to pick.
No, there's
Um,
nothing to be excited about is
and
in
the
terms of
flip
picking.
side, there's one easy matchup here. Sorry, Pantherion, but is it Pantherian or Pantherion?
I don't know if it's Pantherion or Pantherian. I don't actually know.
Pantherian.
I've been saying Pantherian, but
Pantherion sounds too much like the one at Busch Gardens.
yeah,
Can't
well,
be that.
it really makes you wonder if they picked that name to try and go against to try and get
Yeah,
some come along business from Pantheon and
yeah.
Pantherion. They just added a couple of letters. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I kind of think
Strange.
that is how you say it now.
It's a cool logo though. I like it.
It
Uh,
is a great logo. It'd make a great magnet.
and I'll tell you what, King's Dominion coming out strong with great logos this year because I also bought a Raptera shirt as well.
The Raptera logo is excellent, and the colors of that ride are great. Like the seafoam
Yes.
green is a really nice color.
And that's what I'm hoping to maybe see next year in the Thrilling 32. I don't know if there enough people get out there to ride it, but uh,
We will see. I hope to make plans to get down there.
it's going to be in the discussion at least. And then of course we got Flying Dino, that I think is a criminally underranked roller coaster in general. Never been on it, but just the way it looks. Our good friend Dason was out there
Oh
in Japan
yes.
and got on Flying Dino this past year.
Okay. Yeah, Flying Dinosaur here again. It was number 30 last year. So again, one of those that historically has kind of just been happy to be here. But
Yeah,
it's been here a number of times now. So Flying Dinosaur is not here by accident. Flying Dinosaur is certainly worthy of being here. It's been as high as number 22 in the past in 2018. We had a couple of years where it wasn't in the valid ranking, but we're at number 30 last year, and then we're in it again this year. So Flying Dino always has potential to win at least one here. And Nemesis is one of those that has done really, really well in the past before we had a lot of new rides. It's been in the top five a couple of times. It's been last year it was 26, which was actually the lowest it's ever been. But again, I don't know that that's necessarily because Nemesis is getting worse. I would argue that the new version of Nemesis here, the reborn Nemesis, is actually a little bit better. It actually felt a little bit faster to me. I think I know a lot of people didn't like the new paint job when it first came out. I think it looks pretty damn cool.
yeah.
The lighting that they've added to it is cool. The extra theme elements, the redone station, the area is a little bit better themed. Now the ride itself feels like it did when I rode it 8 years ago, maybe a little bit faster. It was also a little bit warmer. But a lot of people when it first opened, people were like, "Oh, it rattles, it vibrates." I couldn't disagree more. It felt like Nemesis from 1994, or 2017 when I rode it, but it felt like I was riding the same old ride, and that is a good thing.
Yeah. So
So I think it's just new rides appearing that have slowly bumped it down over the years, and we've seen that. I mean, we've had a lot of other inverted coasters in the Thrilling 32 over the years, and they've all been knocked out. A lot of the B&M hyper coasters have since been knocked out, and it's just because other new rides are coming in and they're just knocking them out. So
yeah, and that's what
I think that's
happened.
what you're seeing here too. Um, shall we move on to the next group here?
Let's move on.
All right, let's move on to the Joe Draves group, the genius behind the RMC layouts, right?
I guess.
Um,
I
And
think you're making up names at this point.
well, I might be. And this is an almost entirely RMC group with one very intriguing exception. So we've got Iron Gwazi from Busch Gardens, Tampa in Florida, going up against Iron Rattler from Six Flags Fiesta, Texas in San Antonio, Texas. We've got Twisted Timbers from King's Dominion in Doswell, Virginia, going up against Untamed from Walibi Holland in the Netherlands. We've got a ride that was new for 2024. We've got Voltron Navara from Europa Park in Roost, Germany, going up against Wildcats Revenge from Hershey Park in Hershey, Pennsylvania. And we do have the steel ranking of Lightning Rod, Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, Dollywood, going up against Airy Force One from Fun Spot America, Atlanta in Fayetteville, Georgia. So we've got 7 RMCs, 6 of which are stateside, 1 from Europe, and then we've got this weird multi-launch, super high-end themed, I don't know what the hell you want to call Voltron, but we're throwing that in here into this group as an absolute wild card, knowing that this is the big 2024 ride that a lot of people were super excited about. It's the one that, quite frankly, looks most impressive of your 2024 rides. And historically, this poll has shown that new rides do extremely well. Rides like Lightning Rod, rides like Untamed, rides like Iron Gwazi do very well in their debut year. Even Twisted Timbers did quite well its first year. A lot of rides in this group had very strong showings their first year. So we're going to throw Voltron in with a bunch of them to really spice this group up.
Was Lightning Rod actually ranked last year in the steel?
It was number 16.
Oh, so this isn't the first year that it's on the site. Just okay. So 16 last year. Airy Force One.
Airy Force One was number 13.
I'll tell you what, this might be the hardest bracket of the tournament so far.
Yeah, so here you go. So Voltron was new, so it didn't have a ranking, right?
Yeah.
So you had Untamed at 4. You had Iron Gwazi at 7.
Yeah.
You had Airy Force One at 13. Wildcat at 15. Lightning Rod at 16. And then Twisted Timbers 22 and Iron Rattler 28.
And so you have to first pick where you think Voltron's going to fall. And then that's also assuming that Wildcat could possibly jump, because Wildcat came in at what, 16?
15, yeah.
15, and we said, a lot of people said that was low for Wildcat. A lot of people were surprised that
as was I.
So then you have to decide, was that just a 1-year deal and have more people gone to Hershey Park to ride it? I know I have not. There were some ideas I was going to get there. I didn't actually get out there though.
We did speculate last year that Wildcat was closed quite a bit last year, and that a lot of people who went didn't actually get to ride it. So we did speculate that might have factored in.
Yeah. So you have to decide that. You have to decide if Airy Force One was legit, because we know, like we said, first year sometimes rides come out real hot. But Area Force One's another one that did a whole lot of people get down there to ride it. So yeah, there's a lot of question marks here. This might be the hardest bracket you've done so far.
Well, there's certainly a lot of question marks. There's 3. I would say there's at least, I would say there's 5 strong contenders to win this group, right?
And then once you get past the first round, it doesn't get any easier from that point.
No,
I think harder depending on who you pick.
I think there's 5 very justifiable choices for winning this group, quite frankly.
Holy shit.
This is some of my proudest work of this year.
Good luck with that one. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, shall we move on to the next group here?
Yes.
All right. So we're going to move on to the mock group.
Hey, there we go.
Hey, we know this one. And it's because we've got a couple of rides from mock themselves here in this group. So we've got Asia Naika from Fuji Q Highland in Japan, going up against another 2024 debut ride, Hyperia from Thorpe Park in England. We've got Hyperion from
Now this is just getting
Energylandia.
confusing at this point.
Right. I did this to be a jerk at this point. I almost put them two together.
You should
Um,
have. Nobody would know the difference anyway.
and you know what? I thought better of it. And you want to know why? People who do our poll cannot spell. And even though it's a checkbox, even though it's a checkbox now with Qualtrics, I was not confident that people would pick the one they actually meant to pick. So I saved us the frustration and I put it in a different
Yeah,
in
there
a
you
different bracket. Now they might face each other in the next round. But because it pulls your ones from the beginning, that's out of our control.
And
So
yeah, that's not good.
yeah, so you've got Hyperion from Energylandia in Poland going up against Fury 325 from Carowinds, which was a matchup that happened last year and was a matchup of much discussion where Hyperion was 9 and Fury was 10, and Hyperion pulled off an upset last year. So you're welcome for giving you that one again this year.
Yeah.
On the other side of the group, we've got Schwertes Kernen from Hansa Park in Germany going up against Jurassic World Velocicoaster from Universal's Islands of Adventure in Orlando, Florida. And you're welcome for this one, too. Ride to Happiness from Plopsaland de Pan in Belgium, last year's number 6 coaster, going up against last year's number 3 coaster, Taiga from Linnanmäki in Helsinki, Finland.
I'm gonna need a translator here pretty soon to understand this poll.
we're getting close, right? I mean,
we're there. I don't know about close. We are there. I don't know what half these. Literally, I don't know half the coasters.
well, so for those of you in the biology field or the science field, a taiga is a Finnish word for some sort of forest, is what it actually translates to. It's like a forest habitat or a forest environment, hence the bird, the wild bird theme. I don't understand how that translates to the bright blue track, but I like the bright blue track, so we'll let it stay. I don't know. Where do you start with this one?
I don't know where to start with this because you have no idea where Hyperia is gonna land.
Yep.
Assuming because it's in Poland, it probably just made ridership, so like
Which one?
Hyperia.
Hyperia is the one in England, in Thorpe Park.
Oh, that's the one in England. Hyperia. Okay, I thought you said it was
mock coaster that kept valleying in the spring.
Oh, I do remember that one. I remember people doing the videos and watching it valley and then saying, "Oh, I can't get to ride today."
Well, and I'll say this. After going there in October when it's cool and a little breezy, I can see how that ride valleys.
Yeah.
It's a great ride. It's a great ride, but I can see how it valleys.
So we don't know where that's a brand new ride. We don't know where that's going to fall.
Yeah.
I feel like there's one clear matchup on the board with Velocicoaster, probably moving on quite easily there. But then you hit a wall on these other 3 matchups of what the hell's going on.
And this is another one where it does not get easier
Does
as you
not
go
get
farther.
Round 2 or 3.
I mean, let's look at the potential matchups that you have here, right? So Hyperion and Fury in that first round, that's 9 and 10 from last year.
Yeah, so that's a toss-up.
Hyperia, you don't know where it is. Asian Ica was 19 last year. I think it's a serious debate whether or not Hyperia's above or below it. I mean, that's if you were to just look at if you were to say Hyperia is going to be in the Thrilling 32, where do you think it's going to fall? I think you'd probably pick around the 20 mark, right? I mean, that's probably where you'd look to start. Ride to Happiness was 6, Taiga was 3. And then you've got the winner of that going up against Velocicoaster, which was 5 last year. Again, assuming Velocicoaster moves on, history tells you it will. And then you've got potentially one of those 3 rides between Taiga, Ride to Happiness, Velocicoaster going up against either Fury, Hyperion, maybe a Hyperia if it really did well and has a strong debut. I think there's 5 or 6 again, just like
There's
the last
once
group, there's
again.
5 or 6 extremely justifiable choices to win this group.
Yeah, like this is not an easy one that I think is gonna be like this is one where I don't want to talk about the future because the first rounds are just so hard to get through. It's hard to predict every single outcome out of this. Well, not that hard, but you can figure it out. Yeah, because do you go with the last year? Or do you because everything's so close. It's when you get to those toss-up matches, it's hard to go off of last year, and that's what you've done here. So I don't know.
And again, this is where, you make a bad pick or a wrong pick in the first round, it's going to hurt you all the way through,
Yes.
and someone else might get that one right, but then you might get a different one right that they get wrong, and
Yeah.
at the end of it, everybody's, beaten and battered and bruised a little bit
Yeah.
here, and nobody gets through unscathed is kind of how it seemed to work last year. And it was just kind of like who last year really seemed to be like who made the least amount of mistakes, not who got everything right.
Yeah.
It
And
really
this year it's
feels
going
like
to be
that's what you're
even
going
closer.
for.
And what I feel like this year is if you make a mistake early on, it's going to hurt you later in the game. Whereas last year, I kind of felt like if you made a mistake early on, looking at how things actually played out, okay, you could have gotten away with a few of them. You could have got away
Yeah.
with a few mistakes. Here, you make a mistake here with Hyperion and Fury, or with Taiga and Ride of Happiness, or and it's going to have lasting effects on you. Like that's the
It
crazy
feels
part.
that way.
Yeah.
It feels that way, and it's not the type of thing where, on the wood bracket we've like to do like Outlaw Run and El Toro against each
Yeah.
other a lot, or like a Ravine Flyer and a Goliath. Like we like to put those close to each other. It's not like, okay, you get that one wrong and the other three in the group are easy.
Yeah.
There's multiple groups here where you have multiple of those difficult first round matchups where you could easily have 3 of the 4 wrong in multiple groups here, and your entire bracket is just gone after round one.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely. So
all right, Andy,
on to the last group here.
we've got one more group. We've got 8 more steel coasters to talk about here tonight. So why don't we go to here's another one you should know, the Ron Toomer group. How
And
about
there
that?
you go. We finished off strong.
We,
So
we
two
finished
for two
strong.
for
We went
eight.
0 for 6, but we finished off strong with 2 in a row.
There you go.
Um, oh boy, it's like the high school kid who gets an F on the exam but gets the 2 extra credit questions right at the end and manages a D minus.
Yeah, there you go. There
All
you
right.
go. Right?
So in the Ron Toomer group, we've got Sky Rush from Hershey Park in Hershey, Pennsylvania, going up against Shambhala from Portaventura in Spain. We've got Lek Coaster from Legendia in Poland, returning again this year, going up against Zadra from Energylandia in Poland. So we've got a battle of 2 rides about an hour apart over in Poland. There in the Ron Toomer group. On the other side of the bracket, we've got Fly from Phantasialand in Brule, Germany, going up against X2 from Six Flags Magic Mountain in Valencia, California.
There you go.
And a nice parting gift from yours truly. We've got Expedition G-Force from Holiday Park in Germany, going up against Conda from Wallaby, Belgium in Wavre, Belgium, just outside of Brussels. Conda was the surprise of the bracket of the competition 2 years ago, making it to the final 4 by way of an upset over Expedition G-Force. We put them in the same bracket last year. Everybody picked Conda. Expedition G-Force was 8. Conda was 11. Expedition
Yeah.
G-Force screwed everybody because everybody picked Conda. So now we've got a good old-fashioned rubber match here in this year. They
Gonna
each won
figure it out
one.
here.
Now you've got to decide, is the recent one history? We're going to return? They're going to flip-flop again? You got to pick. Are you going to go with trends? Are you going to go with patterns? Are you going to go with history? Are you going to flip a coin? And that's just one matchup.
And that's just, but I feel this one, 2 matchups, I feel are pretty clear to me who's gonna win.
Yeah.
2 matchups feel clear, and then well, three matchups I feel like are clear for the first round to me. Maybe I'm just thinking that. because I don't know
Okay.
where Shambhala actually ranks.
So yeah, so last year we had Skyrush at 24 and Shambhala 31.
Okay, so that's a lot
Um,
closer than I thought it was.
yeah, Shambhala has had an interesting history. It's been as high as number 9. That was in
Yeah.
2019. The only coaster from Spain to ever appear in the Thrilling 32. But it's had good years. But it's also been very volatile. It's been back and forth. But so has Skyrush. Skyrush has ping-ponged an awful lot. I mean,
And
let
did
me
the changes to Skyrush influence people's opinions? I didn't get on it. What have people been saying about Skyrush since the changes were made?
I thought it was great.
There
I've
were
never been
changes that
one.
were made, right? I'm not crazy. Like they did
No,
something.
yeah, oh geez, what did they even do
They
now?
did something to the trains, I thought, right?
Yeah, they brought they did exactly what I said they should have done like 5 years ago. They got the Velocicoaster Terran
Yeah,
style lap bars and put them on, so they're like contoured to your legs a lot
yeah,
better as opposed to like being flat. And I thought it was very comfortable. Now, I've never thought that Skyrush was overly uncomfortable. The new lap bars are more comfortable. The ride itself doesn't feel any different. I think it's just
yeah.
more comfortable. So in my opinion, I think it was an improvement. I've never been one that's had Skyrush like in my top 10 or anything, not in many years. Certainly when I first rode it when it first opened and I hadn't been on as many rides, it was up there. But recently I haven't been like a Skyrush loyalist by any means, but
Yeah.
I think it overall was an improvement.
Yeah, and maybe other people have said that, so maybe we'll see it rise a little bit. I feel like the
Yeah.
Zadra matchup there is pretty should be pretty clear to anyone that has two eyes.
So
Um,
the Skyrush one, real quick, because we talked about Shambhala having a volatile history. Skyrush has probably had the most
yeah,
volatile history ever. Skyrush has been as high as number 5 in 2020. It's been as low as 35, and that was in
yeah,
2013, a year after it
yeah,
opened. And it's been in the top 10 four different times: 2015, 2017, 2020, and 2021. So in 2021, it was in the top 10. And then 2022 comes around. And then last year, 2023, we're at 24. So Skyrush still has not really settled anywhere.
yeah. And I don't know if it ever will.
It
It's
probably never will.
it's such a people have so many different opinions about Skyrush that it's hard to settle down. It's short, it's too fast, it's too rough, it hurts my
Yeah.
legs, it's tries to throw me out of the seat too much. I don't know. It's hard to.
I thought that's what people liked, but maybe
It's I
not.
thought what people like too until well then they say it's not rewritable when it tries to throw them out. So that's
Yeah,
the
okay. Well,
you know oh it's not
that was that.
rewritable. Well, okay, whatever.
Right.
Yeah, so maybe
Um,
grow a
y
pair.
yeah, no, I agree with that 100%. Zadra, last year's number 2 coaster, after a big jump, right? There was all sorts of
Yeah,
speculation as to what was going to happen with Zadra last year, and it ended up a pretty close number 2. Steel Vengeance was 99.47, Zadra was 99.22. So, not a huge margin of victory, but enough that I don't know, you probably feel pretty comfortable. That's right in the range of what Steel Vengeance has had the last several years. Keep in mind it was knocked off that one year by Velocicoaster there, and then it's returned the last couple of years.
and keep in mind
So
Zadra was 24 2 years ago. So
yes,
did we see that European jump and then
right.
all of a sudden we settle back in? I don't know.
Right. And the thing we pointed out last year is that in 2022, it dropped from 16 to 24,
Yeah.
even though its score only decreased 0.41 points because other coasters around it just did quite a bit better. So the drop from 16 to 24 was a little bit misleading. And then obviously the jump to number 2 last year, that absolutely there's nothing misleading about that. That was just a clear influx of riders, which it was, and people putting it very, very high. Lek Coaster had a nice showing last year. It was 23. And again, don't think it's challenging Zadra this year.
Yeah.
But had a nice showing. On the other side, again, I did this again, right? Fly was number 17 last year. X2 was number 18.
And see, I thought that was going to be a lot further apart than what that actually is. So that's actually a toss up. I thought that was a gimme for X2, but maybe it's not.
Yeah, X2, again, I mentioned it with Nemesis. X2 is one of those rides that is still a tremendous ride, certainly deserving of being in the Thrilling 32. But the new coming rides and just new rides that are getting built, it has slowly dropped a couple spots each year. And all of a sudden, I mean, a few years ago it was in the top 10, and now
Yeah,
all of a sudden it's barely in the top 20.
yeah.
And not because X2 isn't still a great ride, because it is, there's just other rides appearing. Um, Fly was number 19 in 2021. It was 29 in 2022.
Just
And then
up.
last year up to 17. So last year was actually a new high ranking for Fly. And what's interesting is we talked about how um, Fly, each of the last 2 years, meaning 2021 and 2022, it was less than 1 percentage point behind Terran, a ride at the same park. This past year, it was a full percentage point higher than Terran. So
Hmm.
we finally had Fly overtake Terran in the Phantasialand in park rankings.
Yeah.
So either enough people have been on both now, or enough people have gone back and ridden Fly. So at least according to the Thrilling 32 here, Fly is definitively the best coaster at Phantasialand now, and it's a wide margin now.
Well, yeah, and I'm glad that all these prices are rising because all these Americans won't be able to afford to go to Europe anymore to ride all these new rides. So because pretty much we're going to have the European 32 here momentarily.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. So when you look
And,
at
and
this
I
group of,
purposely did not talk about future rounds this evening um, because there's so many different options and there's a lot of compelling things that you sometimes like you can start picking them out and be like, okay, well this one wins here, then this one wins here, and it kind of just like everything kind of falls into place. And I don't think that's going to happen for a lot of you guys as you start filling out these brackets. I think, especially in round two, is where
yeah,
I think a lot of people are going to get see a little frustration set in. Like there's going to be some real matchups in the round one that we're going to look at here that we have looked at already tonight. And I think once we get to round two, I think you're going to really begin to feel that frustration. And I think we're going to see a lot more people this year fall into some big pitfalls with picking maybe some things that affect them later on. And like I said earlier, I don't think we've had that in the past where I think you've been allowed to make a mistake here or there and get away with it. This year, I don't think you're going to be able
because
to do that.
it doesn't concatenate down through the different rounds
Yeah.
or cascade down through the different rounds. Whereas this year it feels like there's a lot more potential for mistakes to cost you dearly in the
Yes.
later rounds.
Yes.
Um,
And I
I
kind of
think
like that because people who pick them right get rewarded for picking them right then. And
well,
people who pick them
that's
wrong,
what we
they're-
want. We
there's a punishment. And it's not just the points of that round, it's the points moving down the bracket.
Yeah, and I mean, in the past, in order to strategize, we've said take the 32 rides and rank them 1 through 32. Create your ranking that you think the rides ranked in, and then just fill out your bracket accordingly. I don't know if people have really done that, if they've ever tried that,
Yeah,
but it's going to help you because
probably.
otherwise you'll rack your brain with some of these matchups and you'll second guess yourself the entire time. If you take the entire 32 list and just rank them 1 through 32, because there's no ties, right? We go out
Yeah,
as many decimal places as we need. The only way if there's ties is if there's exact ridership and exact ranking. We've never had that happen really anywhere. So at some point, you know that there's no ties. So if you at least create a list and say, this is the list that I am most confident in rankings, you just go with it at some point and say, okay, if I look at that matchup in a vacuum, maybe I'm second guessing myself there, but you could second guess half of these matchups
Yeah.
here. I don't know if I don't know if that would help you or hurt you with your confidence interval in some of these picks. But it is a way to approach the problem of trying to come up with a bracket here that's going to win.
And we usually give them how much time here to do this? 2 weeks?
Yeah, we're gonna give him a couple weeks. Again, I at the time of recording, I have to update the Qualtrics form, and we're not quite sure when we're gonna drop it here. But I would say, do it within a week or two of it dropping. We'll try and post when we release the show. We'll decide, and we'll put the deadline date in the description or something, or in the live chat if we end up doing the premiere.
And
Real
if you
quick.
win, fabulous prizes will be yours.
Yes, of course. You can get some magnets. They're over there on my fridge, at the magnet of your choice. Andy's got some up there on his
Some
ceiling.
there, back over there.
We've only got a minute or two before our timer runs out here, so we got to sign off. But real quick, wanted to point out a couple of things. So we already talked about Tremors, uh, Beast, Mind Blower, wood coasters that didn't make it. Mako,
Mm,
Leviathan,
mm.
Wicked
Former champion.
Cyclone, Superman the Ride, Silver Star has finally dropped out.
Jesus.
And I don't know if anybody noticed this. For the first time ever, no Millennium Force in the Thrilling 32.
But this has been the trend for a while.
Uh-huh.
That
It
that
has.
people hate
No
American
Phantom's Revenge. That's always been in.
people hate America and American coasters apparently. So it's just all
Yeah.
wrapped up into one now. It's the
Yep.
I don't know where the where the patriotic appeals are, but it's apparently our voters are look at where I've been voters
Yeah,
now.
well, and some of those rides weren't in last year, right? Leviathan, Superman, Silver Star.
I'm
But
still debating how Silver Star ever got in. So
Silver Star
let's
is a fine ride. Silver Star is very good.
Star.
But
I know Wicked Cyclone's not a fine ride, so
well, and it's not here, and Storm Chaser's not even in
so
the top 100. So at
yeah,
least
so
they
there
got
you
something
go.
right.
So at
But yeah,
least
Millennium
I don't even know
Force
what the name
and
of. Isn't
Phantom's
it Wind
Revenge.
Racer now or something? That they've changed the name of
Yeah,
Storm
it's
Chaser.
Wind Chaser.
Wind
So
Chaser. So very
I
fine
don't
name
know.
there.
It's
Very fine name for a very
ridiculous.
fine coaster.
I rode a Storm Chaser in England that was better than the one in Kentucky.
I rode a Storm Chaser in Iowa that was
Yeah,
better.
and it wasn't even a roller coaster. Yeah. So no Phantom's Revenge, no Millennium Force. In this year in Thrilling 32 for the first time ever in both rides cases. So definitely again an eclectic collection of rides in this year's Thrilling 32. Some new rides, some old rides, some rides that weren't new but appear for the first time here. So I think you've got your work cut out for you once again. And certainly challenging, but I think a little bit different than past years here.
Yeah. So as always, we look forward to you filling out your brackets and submitting them to see who our thrilling 32 bracket champion is. As always, am Andrew Barchek from Chicago, Illinois.
Now I'm Danny Miller from Binghamton, New York.
Right on, right, Warriors.
Click the link below. Good luck, guys. See you next time.